Hi, I'm Amy Howard, Extension Officer with the Birdship Cropping Group, and I'm here today with BCG Research and Extension Officer Genevieve Clark to discuss the canola phenology by time of sowing trial. So Jen, what does canola phenology mean?
Okay, so I guess if we step it back a little bit, some people may have heard of the terms genotype and phenotype. So a genotype is the genetic makeup of, let's say in this case, a variety of canola. And then the phenotype is how that genotype is expressed in a particular environment, or in this case, in different growing conditions, which we've manipulated through different sowing times. So when we're talking about canola phenology, we're looking at the phenotype of these different canola varieties. So how these different varieties are performing and maturing and producing in different environments.
It's very interesting. So what was this canola phenology trial aiming to achieve?
So yeah, we ran this trial this year down at Kalkee, and we had 2 different emergent states, and we had 40 different varieties with different phenology groups in those varieties. We were looking at the flowering dates of these different varieties across phenology groups with the 2 different emergent states that we achieved.
Excellent. So what were the results for last year?
Yep, so I might just flick across to this next slide for you. We've got a few small key points from the trial. So I should mention that this trial that we ran at Kalkee is part of the Optimised Canola Profitability Project, which is funded by GRDC and headed up by Roland Brill at New South Wales DPI. And CSIRO has also helped with some work on it. So what part of this project has involved is coming up with an optimal start of flowering period for different varieties. So this basically means the optimum window for a certain environment where canola should start flowering. So we measure the start of flowering for canola by 50% of plants have at least one fully open flower. And that's when we can say it's begun to flower. So the optimal start of flowering window, it helps us to maximise yield potential. So it means that you're avoiding the stresses that come from frost and disease if you're flowering too early, and also avoid the stresses at the other end of the season that come through drought and heat, so if you're flowering too late. So as a little bit of a summary from this trial, the optimal start of flowering window for canola in Horsham, so just near Kalkee where the trial was run, is between the 18th of July and the 25th of August, or you can talk it as the 6th of August with a 38-day range, so half of 38 either side brings us to these dates. And we had 40 different varieties and 2 different germination dates. So across those 40 different varieties, we covered a number of phenology groups, with fast to mid-fast to mid and slow developing varieties. So we found that with early germination, all of the varieties in this trial started flowering within this optimal start of flowering period for Horsham. However, the late germination proved too late for some of the slow developing varieties in the trial. And I'll just flick across to this little graph here for you. So this is just a visual display of what I was saying there. Across the bottom on the x-axis, we've got our dates, and we've overlaid the optimal start of flowering window for Horsham there. Up the y-axis, we've got a selection of 32 of the varieties that we had in the trial at Kalkee, and where the bar stops indicates when that variety got to its 50% flowering, so it started flowering. When we look here in the orange, we've got our early germination, which came from early sowing. And you can see there that all of the varieties across all the phenology groups fell within that optimal start of flowering window. However, when we push to the dark green bars there, In the later germination, you can see that some of the slower developing varieties, including Wahoo and Ignite and Archer, they really were starting to flower a bit late, so pushing into that higher risk window there. But when you look at something like Stingray and Diamond, our faster developing varieties, the late germination still fell within that window. So we found that selecting a mid to fast hybrid variety with flexible phenology in the wimmera helps to manage risk and captures the great upside when seasonal conditions are actually favourable.
Excellent. So why is this information useful now?
Yeah, so this time of year people are looking towards sowing, so looking at variety selection as well as a guide to sowing decisions. So when we can find an optimal start of flowering window for our area, we can start to look at different phenology groups that might suit when we might be sowing our canola. So this will help to maximise yield potential and avoid the stresses that come with flowering too early or flowering too late in the season.
Excellent, thank you, Jen. Now, how can we go about finding out some more information?
Yeah, I'll just flick to this next slide here. So this is a document that's been produced through the GRDC, and it's called the 20 Tips for Profitable Canola. So this is an outcome of the Optimised Canola Profitability Project. It can be found on the GRDC website, and this is the Victorian one. So it runs through looking at variety selection, what might be suitable for your region and your farming system, and then looking at potential sowing windows.